Andy, it's great to have you here in Belfast for first time with Elim Bible Week. Welcome to Wondrous, which is the relaunch of the Elim Bible Week. And just by way of introduction, tell us a bit about yourself.
My name's Andy Hawthorne. I lead the Message Trust in Manchester. Started it with a mate in his bedroom about 20 years ago, and it's grown, and so we have about 100 full-time staff and thousands of volunteers, and touch the lives of about 100,000 young people every year. So been a journey.
Sounds good. Message Trust, obviously that's your thing, that's what you're known for. Tell us a bit about what you do for it, do with it, your heart for it, that sort of thing.
Well, Message Trust was actually birthed out of a business that I had in inner city Manchester, and I did this thing that a lot of business people do. Drove out of the suburbs, my nice house in the suburbs, drove into the inner city because that's where the grants were in Manchester, and made some money and drove back out, and never really touched the lives of the people around the business. And yet in the mid-80s we had a big surge in turnover. Our theory is Lady Diana wore a pair of our braces. We used to make these fashion braces, and like next day every girl in Britain had to have a pair. And so we took on lots of lads from the local estate. Brilliant. In tough inner city estate in Manchester, and they were a nightmare. They weren't brilliant. There was all sorts of chaos, but not just the fact that their lives were chaotic with drugs and gang activities and crime, and just got to know the families a bit, and their families were generations of unemployment and criminality and all that carnage. And so, as a couple of Christians, me and my brother leading this business, we started looking for local churches in that estate. We couldn't really find any. There were churches, but they were kind of churches that met with the alarms on the barbed wire to keep these lads out. Okay. Tiny little churches. And so we wrote to every church in Manchester in 1987 and said, this is crazy. There's a community growing up here that's really not being touched by the gospel. And what we're going to do about it? And it was arrogant, I guess, and naive, but God liked the heart, I think. Because he's always looking for people who have a heart for the least and the lost. And so we also booked the biggest rock venue in Manchester for a week, called it the Message 88, and it was just a God thing. There were over 300 local events in the build-up, and then thousands and thousands of kids turned up to these crazy gigs we did, and loads became Christians. They were queuing up at 2:30 in the afternoon of the final day to get in. It was amazing. And then we did again in 89, and then in 90 we started to do, on the back of it, schools work. We formed a band we called the Worldwide Message Tribe.
Oh, heard of that.
There you go. Well, I mean, I can't sing, dance, rap, any of that. I'm not a musician, but it was this little season in Manchester where Manchester was like the centre of the world music scene. Yeah. You remember all that Manchester and that rave music and all that stuff, yeah. And so we were making this kind of music, but with God lyrics, and I was doing this crazy rapping, sounded a bit like a demonised member of Sesame Street. And all the kids were going, it's fantastic. And I'm going, is it? I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. God just saw a heart and blessed it. And it was a crazy thing that this band, that our whole focus was, let's just go into schools and a few dancers from our youth group and try and proclaim Christ in schools. And God just smiled on it. We ended up selling like 400,000 albums and got popular all over the world. It was craziness. But it was, that verse I might even mention tonight, I love the eyes of the Lord range the earth looking for a heart. 2 Chronicles 16 verse 9. Because that's all God's looking for, a heart. Yeah. He says, that man I will strongly support, a heart fully committed to me. That man I'll strongly support. And that's definitely what we felt like. When we suddenly got a heart for these lads and girls that were growing up in inner city Manchester without hearing the gospel in a language they could understand. And we got a heart for these school kids in these tough schools, and God just said, watch what I can do. Yeah. And so I left the business then and set up the charity. Brilliant. And it was a big one of those, I had to reorder my life and went from having quite a nice lifestyle to setting up this charity in my mate's bedroom, spare bedroom, thinking, what have I done? But God's been so good.
It's tremendous to hear about that. For me, I'm having a throwback here. I'm thinking the farm and strawberry fields forever and all together now and all the wee songs from Manchester. Yeah. It's sad, really. But as I was reading a wee bit about you, and I came across just an article in relation to a national prayer event, and it was talking about how that we've become in a culture really familiar with. We talk about God. God's not a bad term to use really politically. We can talk about God, and God can mean whatever God can mean. But recently, according to this article, you made the point that we need to be talking about Jesus, that you can't really talk about Christianity without talking about Jesus. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, I got the chance to speak at the Houses of Parliament, and there were all the big wigs there, lots of politicians, lots of business leaders, and that's exactly what I said. I said it's not true. You know, it was who was it? Alistair Campbell famously said, "We don't do God." The truth is, we do God. Yeah. There's been more bills that mention God in the last 10 years than in the previous 100. What we don't do is we don't do Jesus. Yeah. It's Jesus who's the offence. Absolutely. And Jesus is the only answer. The only hope we've got. He's not some random God. Who's this God? I'll tell you God is. His name's Jesus Christ. He revealed himself. Right. And we've become more and more bold in that. You know, we don't get a load of government money, even though we deliver incredible results. Yes. You know, we've got, our track record of the young offenders we've been working with in the last 12 months is none of them. The ones we've taken on and given a job and a home and rooted in local church, saved him out of prisons, none of them have reoffended. Now it's saving millions and millions of pounds, and the answer is, the only difference, not that we're smarter than all these government politicians or businessmen, the answer is Jesus Christ has come into the life, transforming power of the gospel.
That's good. Obviously a lovely way to finish what you've just said. As far as we're just really closing off what we're just having our chat here, and we're really looking forward to just hearing your ministry tonight. Expect to be challenged, but when it comes to challenge, you know, everybody seems to have a core message, you know, something that just love everybody to get. Is there something you would love us to take away from Wondrous?
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about parable of the sower, and Jesus says at the end of the parable of the sower, person with a good and a noble heart who perseveres to the end, that person will produce 30, 60, even 100-fold. And I'd love people in this room, people watching this video, to think, why not believe for God's maximum? Yeah. Why not just do something so that my life, ordinary bloke like me, can produce an incredible bumper harvest for Jesus? Yeah. Why not go for it? Why not reorder my life and my disciplines and my finances and my vision, and start dreaming and believing for God's maximum? Because if there's 100-fold, I want it, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great way to finish. So big round of applause here, all the guys in the back line doing nothing, just looking at us. Yeah, but thank you very much, Andy. Really looking forward to your ministry. God bless you.